But I think that honestly, like from sort of like a perspective standpoint, money is not difficult to actually acquire. If you think about it from back then, all they were doing is they were exchanging one piece of value for another.
Scott, we also wanted to ask you, has goal setting been a big part of your career thus far?
What sort of goal setting in general is in actually getting progress from it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've always been sort of goal orientated, and that's actually something which I'm sort of leaning back from these days. I like beforehand. I'll tell you a little bit of a sort of a story. The goal that I was always sort of driven towards was having a 5-figure month, basically. So making over £10,000 in a month, right? That was my goal. That I was like, this is impossible. Like, I literally come from a family that like probably the biggest earners like £2,000 a month at best. And I was like, right, okay, can I make 5 times that in like 30 days? And it got to a point where we were like surpassing that. And looking back on it, that was like the objective that I'd set. And maybe it was the actual goals that I was setting, which was where I went wrong. But I've never been so depressed since I actually started the business. When I hit that, like I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, like fireworks or like party poopers or balloons to fall from the sky. But I've never felt so depressed. And it literally took me about a month to figure out that I needed to cut back on the sales and just refocus on doing what I love. Spending that extra time, sending that little bit of additional information to a client to help them on something which is completely unrelated to the project, completely unrelated. For example, if a client doesn't quite have the budget for us, instead of sort of saying, I'll get back to that email later because this client wants to work with us, being respectful to absolutely everyone. And I'll be honest, like it was a really, really dark place. Like when you have your eyes sort of set on something and it's the wrong thing, it can lead you down a path which is not good for you whatsoever. And that was something which, again, this was about a year and a half ago. It was a really, really like a really troublesome time because I didn't know what was wrong with me at that point. I was like, well, I'm achieving, the thing which I've set out to achieve for a couple of years. Like, why am I not happy? And it was kind of, transferring or exchanging the happiness of loving what I do and having the time to put in that extra detail. Instead, I was focusing on the invoice at the end of the line, and that is never, ever, ever, ever going to be, a route to happiness. It's never going to, result in good things.
Why do you think people get so lost in the dollar value and making that the main goal?
Well, Seth Godin said, like, he says lots of incredible things, but something which really stuck with me was, I'm not sure if it was the linchpin or another one of his books, but basically money is essentially a tool, right? Like, in all fairness, like pretty much every single, dollar or pound is all kind of just completely part of our imagination anyway, because money was essentially created back in the olden days as an exchange of currency. For example, if someone, we used to just trade for trade. So for example, if someone grew apples and someone, did horseshoes, for example, the guy who grew the apples would say, I'll give you 10 apples if you, sort of craft the horseshoes on my horse, for example, because horseshoes are not going to be on any other animal, obviously. So that was kind of the old way of exchanging currency. But then it got to a point where, say, for example, if the person who had the apples didn't need anything and the apples were going rotten. So that's when they kind of started to introduce this universal currency, and obviously it went from there. But I think that honestly, like from sort of like a perspective standpoint, money is not difficult to actually acquire. If you think about it from back then, all they were doing is they were exchanging one piece of value for another. The only reason that we buy an iPhone is because the iPhone holds a value that we can't get unless we buy the iPhone. So we exchange our money for that iPhone. Exactly the same with any other product. We don't exchange our money for anything that we can do ourselves, really, unless we don't have the time. Where in that case, you're just buying time. So again, you're buying value. So money is always just being a physical exchange of value or a digital exchange of value if you're doing it online. And if you think about money that way, you start to realize that money is actually, it is a tool. Like, it isn't just, you know, one of those sayings that, you know, people say at pretty, you know, motivational conferences. Money is essentially a tool which, if you have value, then people, like, money will come your way. If you learn how to give people value as opposed to learning how to acquire money, it's literally as simple as that. Learn how to bring value to someone, and then they'll pay you for it. It's literally as simple as that. It doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be complex.